Greetings, my fellow frame low-sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning to LL3-Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful realm of the planet Earth. Today's date, Saturday, September 6th, 2025. This is episode 1891, Thomas Paine's Forgotten Paper Money Takedown. Before I proceed, you can follow me on multiple social media sites and podcast channels. Just type in Loki Luck number 3, Loki Luck Roman number 3 with 3 eyes, or the Loki Luck Roman number 3 podcast. Furthermore, if you have any questions, comments, recommendations, and all that good stuff, whatever you do, please use the decorum. Hit me via email to ll3.podcast@proton.me. If you want to donate, go to PayPal.me or cash.app/Loki number 3. If you want to follow me and give me a little crypto love on Steemit, go there at LL number 3-podcast. So, just relaxing here a little bit. Pretty late Saturday night. And, you've been hearing about the falling of the dollar, which is actually a Federal Reserve note. Been under the Fiat status since 1971 under the Richard Nixon administration, which Roger Stone admit that's one of the most egregious moves Nixon made. You gotta always see things a lot more thorough. Gold's going up, more money being printed out of thin air, debt ceiling, and when the United States like $37 trillion in debt to the banksters, the Rothschilds, the Federal Reserve. Oh yeah, private central banking system. Something that Karl Marx gets a hard-on for. Per se, the Communist Manifesto. And many others say the same thing. Because if you read our U.S. Constitution, gold and silver is supposed to be legit, sound money. And even the states, under Article 1, Section 10, talks about gold and silver used in transactions and credit and all that good stuff. We have to always look at the historical elements on why paper money, fiat currency, is dangerous to humanity as a whole. We can even go further back in time, the 20th century, the Weimar Republic of Germany. They start using money out of thin air. In 1922, then all hell broke loose around 1928. This is how the National Socialist Workers' Party advanced their cause. So here's how I look at all angles, how all this occurred. Even places like Argentina, Zimbabwe, even Venezuela. Central banking system, 1939. All this paper, money control, all that, it's very sticky, you can say. And we've been warned, which the government schools don't want you to know, even the History Channel, allegedly, watching all the bobbleheads, want to point the fingers. But it's been going on for a very long time, folks. So I want to read this article from the 10th Amendment.com. Came out today by Michael Bolden, president of the organization. I encourage people to check him out. And it says here, Thomas Paine's Forgotten Paper Money Takedown. Categories on the Federal Reserve Founding Principles, Thomas Paine. The quote, "Money is money and paper is paper. All the invention of man cannot make them otherwise." With those words, Thomas Paine went after what he saw as one of the greatest scams in history, government claiming that paper is money. Through a series of devastating critiques, Paine delivered one of the most brutal takedowns of paper money ever written, systematically exposing every aspect of this fundamental fraud. Properties of money. Paine started with a simple truth that cuts through centuries of propaganda. Gold and silver are the emissions of nature. Paper is the emission of art. Then he explained the key properties of money. First, real money's value must come from a source outside of human control, making it stable and trustworthy. The value of gold and silver is ascertained by the quantity which nature has made in the earth. We cannot make that quantity more or less than it is. And therefore the value being dependent upon the quantity depends not on man. Man has no share in making gold or silver. All that his labors and ingenuity can accomplish is to collect from the mine, refine it for use, and give it an impression or stamp it into coin. The next value must be intrinsic. Even government stamp on a coin doesn't create value, only convenience. Its being stamped into coin adds considerably to its convenience, but nothing to its value. It has then no more value than it had before. Its value is not in the impression, but in itself. Take away the impression and still the same value remains. Finally, money has to be lasting and durable. Alter it as you will or expose it to any misfortune that can happen. The value is not diminished. It has a capacity to resist the accidents that destroy other things. Why paper fails? Paine couldn't be more clear. All those properties are required for something to be money. Nothing which has not all those properties can be fit for the purpose of money. Paper has none of those qualities, which is why it fails as money. Paper is considered as a material whereof to make money, has none of the requisite qualities in it. It is so plentiful and too easily come at. It can be had anywhere and for a trifle. Because of this foundation, Paine held that it was pure fantasy to call paper money or use it as such. This is what it says here in a quote. The alchemist may cease his labors, and the hunter after the philosopher's stone go to rest, if paper can be metaphorosed into gold and silver, or made it to answer the same purpose in all cases. See, I learned a word today. Metamorphors. Like metaphoric, metamorphors. I like that. The evils of paper money. Paine also described some of the litany of evils that arise in the paper money system. First is just an illusion. It looks real but has no substance. In reality, it's a scam. But when an assembly undertake to issue paper as money, the whole system of safety and certainty is overturned and property set afloat. It's like putting an apparition in the place of a man. It vanishes with looking at it, and nothing remains but the air. Second, it turns everyone into speculators and gamblers. It turns the whole country into stock jobbers. The precariousness of its value and the uncertainty of its fate continually operate night and day to produce this destructive effect. Lacking real value, paper becomes a tool for faction and manipulation, eating away at the morals of the people. Having no real value in itself, it depends for support upon accident, caprice, and party, and as it is the interest of some to depreciate and to others to raise its value, there is a continual invention going on that destroys the morals of the country. The same uncertainty breeds constant deceit, tearing apart justice and destroying the fabric of the society itself. It is certain and fluctuating value is continually awakening or creating new schemes of deceit. Every principle of justice is put to the rack and the bond of society dissolved. The suppression thereof, therefore, of paper money might very properly have been put into the act of preventing vice and immorality. And it just keeps getting worse. One of the most immoral things that happens in this kind of situation is there always ends up being powerful people demanding more and more money printing. It's the scammers' playbook they still use today. There's another quote here. There are a set of men who go about making purchases upon credit and buying estates they have not wherewithal to pay for. And having done this, their next step is to fill the newspapers with paragraphs of the scarcity of money and the necessity of a paper emission, then to have a legal tender under the pretense of supporting its credit and went out, to depreciate it as fast as they can, get a deal of it for a little price and cheat their creditors, and this is the concise history of paper money schemes. We're seeing it happening right now in front of our eyes. You can add like Blackstone. Does Blackstone ring a bell, folks? For the rest of us, though, the whole system is smoke and mirrors. Paper money is like a dram drinking. It relieves for a moment by deceitful sensation, but gradually diminishes the natural heat and leaves the body worse than it found it. And in the end, it's just a big bubble. It's a bubble and the attempt vanity. The bubble economy. What happens in a paper money bubble? Paine and the rest of the founding generation called it depreciation. What most people call inflation today. The more money they print, the less purchasing power it has, which is represented by an increase in prices for products and services. Excuse me here. Sorry about that. I'll get the hiccups. Here's a quote here. This gives the appearance of things being dear when they are not so in fact. For the same proportion that any kind of money falls in value, articles rise in price. You see what's happening right now? Print money out of thin air. Inflation. Prices are going up. Food, don't matter. Multiple things. And I do recall when they're doing the whole COVID stimulus checks, I told people, expect things to go up. They didn't listen. That's just one avenue. And everyone went up there all like freaking out. Say, oh yeah, we want the $15 minimum wage law. I need to pay my rent better. Yep, and everything went up. Hello. That's what happens when people don't think straight. And I digress. Paine explains how they played out during the War of Independence, which also birthed the phrase, not worth a continental, due to continental dollars that quickly lost their value. The paper money, though issued from Congress under the name of dollars, did not come from that body always at that value. Those which were issued the first year were equal to gold and silver. The second year less, the third year less, and so on for nearly the spaces of 5 years. The situation got pretty dire for many Americans. Paine described an example of how he experienced it firsthand. Paper money in America fell so much in value from this excessive quantity of it that in the year 1781 I gave 300 paper dollars for one pair of worsted stockings. What I write you upon the subject is experience, not merely opinion. To make matters worse, paper money depreciation doesn't just cause price inflation, it also creates an endless cycle. A negative feedback loop that drives out real money, what's known as the Grisham's law today. The natural effect of increasing and continuing to increase paper currency is that of banishing the real money. The shadow takes place of the substance till the country is left with only shadows in its hands. In other words, it was just all smoke and mirrors. Eventually, it leads to bankruptcy. Every new emission until delusion bursts will appear to the nation an increase of wealth. Every merchant's coffers will appear a treasury, and he will swell with paper riches till he becomes a bankrupt. The final verdict, here's the twist. Paine wasn't against paper money itself. In fact, he argued that it could be quite useful when done properly. Only proper use of paper in the room of money is to write promissory notes and obligations of payment in specie upon. A piece of paper thus written and signed is worth the sum it is given for. The value, therefore, of such a note is not the note itself, for that, but paper and promise, but in the man who is obliged to redeem it with gold and silver. Paine's greatest issue was that paper money only survives with the threat of government violence through tender laws. If anything had or could have a value equal to gold and silver, it would require no tender law, and if it had not that value, it ought not to have such a law, and therefore all tender laws are tyrannical and unjust and calculated to support fraud and oppression. In his view, people who support such laws are criminal, or maybe they're delusional because they appear to believe a nation cannot be exhausted while there is paper and ink enough to print paper money. In a republic or in any free society, however, government should never have that power. It's total tyranny. As to the assumed authority of any assembly in making paper money or paper of any kind a legal tender, or in other language a compulsive payment, it is a most presumptuous attempt at arbitrary power. There can be no such power in a republican government. The people have no freedom and property, no security where this practice can be acted. This flips the entire reason to have a government in the first place. Tender laws of any kind operate to destroy morality and to dissolve by the pretense of law what ought to be the principle of law, to support reciprocal justice between man and man. For Paine, politicians who violate this foundational principle by pursuing paper as money anyway deserves the ultimate punishment. And the punishment of a member who should move for such a law ought to be death. Thomas Paine's final verdict: no matter the excuse, no matter the scheme, no matter the reason given, paper money always ends the same way. The evils of paper money have no end. It's interesting because the one about the promissory notes, you could say it's more of a fiduciary note, in my observation. And the problem is with paper money, people should look about the food riots that happened during that time of the war for independence. I think it was in Philadelphia. Everything just skyrocketed, and they had almost a big riot because they couldn't afford the food. This is why in our Constitution they say gold and silver is sound money. And that's essential. Now, and of course, we had 3 central banking systems in the U.S.'s history. Federal Reserve is illegal, void, and without force. And like Thomas Paine said, and the punishment of a member who should move for such a law ought to be death. That's the ultimate punishment. Politicians don't matter. It's downright absurd and unacceptable. Now, like you see what's going on, everything's been going up. If we don't learn from the past, folks, we're damned to repeat it. Thomas Paine warns about it, and so did many others. Paper money, fiat. is a cancer. This article is self-explanatory. Well, that will be it. Thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, recommendations, all that good stuff, whatever you do, please use decorum. You can hit me via email to ll3.podcast@protonline.me. I will leave the article on this episode so you can read it for yourselves. And if you want to donate, go to paypal.me or cash.app/look3. If you want to hang out, chill, support me on Steemit, follow me there at LL3-Podcast. If you want to support the 10th Amendment Center, that'd be very good. Sometimes they can use your dirty fiat money, $2 a month to be a member. So if you're going to do it, make it happen. All right. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love. May your guardian spirits be with you.